Welcome to Season 3 of Robbie Burns and Friends. So, this is fun. I'm here with the two recent guests on Robbie Burns and Friends, and also two podcast co-hosts, Paul Shimmons and Chris Russell. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So you guys, your podcast, I just think of it as TEM in my mind. Technology education, music education. No,
backwards.
Technology education, music podcast.
Music education, or
oh no, it's MET. It's MET.
Yeah,
yes,
there you go.
Not TEM. Music education technology podcast.
There it is.
There it is. It's a fantastic podcast.
Thank you.
In the music education space, you guys are two of the most iPad savvy people that I know. And iOS 11 was released just this past Tuesday, and it has a whole lot of new features, many of which are geared towards the iPad. So I thought it would be fun if we could go over some of those new features and talk about how we're using them, how we're liking them, and what they do.
Has Chris, have you updated?
I did update on Tuesday when it rolled out.
And then were you using the beta before that?
Well, I'm the odd one out where I didn't want to run the beta until it was actually not a beta. And I know both you and Robbie had that beta installed. So you guys will have had a lot more experience with the different versions of iOS 11 as it's been kind of baking in the oven.
I started pretty early on. I think I was in on like the second round of the beta coming out. So yeah, I've been running it for a while.
I usually wait until after summer vacation. And this year I actually put the iPad, I was so excited about the new iPad features that I put the iPad on the beta almost immediately, and my phone when I got back from vacation. So I'm about in the same place with the phone, but the iPad I've been on since the start. And yep, as you would expect, they were a disaster in the early stages.
They were. There was a couple issues, but most things have been ironed out. But now, Robbie, I don't know if you heard me telling Chris, but my little adapter for hooking up my external microphone is not working. So I'm recording this on my laptop. That's why you always have a backup for technology, right?
Right.
So you're saying the dongle didn't work with your iPad or something, Paul?
Yeah, my iPad, and I have a Sonic port VX, and I've got both dongles, just the single one that goes straight to USB from the Lightning, and then I've got the one that has the charging port in it as well. Neither one of them worked, so I'm gonna have to be tracking that down. But I think that kind of is a good warning to people. Is you better know what's going to work and what's not going to work if you're going to rely on a new update like iOS 11.
Well, that might be a good place, a good comment to mention. You know, I know each of you have blogged this summer about 32-bit apps leaving the App Store with iOS 11, and I got to say I'm glad that other people have been blogging about this, because that's one of those subjects that I guess it's one of those things that really helps people to be aware of. But for me, because I'm, I guess, in the tech space, I'm like, duh. like if the app developer hasn't done anything with it by now, then that app is irrelevant or useless. But I realize that's not necessarily the case for everyone. So what are some things that you would say to someone who's not very tech savvy, who is thinking about installing this operating system soon? Like, what are some things that others should look out for that might break? I mean, I wasn't thinking about software, but I mean, Paul, you're speaking about a piece of hardware that doesn't work anymore.
Right, and I don't know if it's it can't be the dongles, they're from Apple. So it must be the combination of that Line 6 microphone in those dongles. But I know somebody else was complaining about their MIDI interface not working with these dongles either. So, again, we're back to that. You better have a backup if you're going to be relying on
Right.
stuff. And if you're relying on this hardware and software for like performances that are like vital, you better be testing and reading to make sure that all that stuff works.
Chris, did you have anything, like whether hardware or software, that broke when you installed iOS 11?
Well, just the things that, I'd blog about this summer. The two things that come to mind is I had a kind of a fun app called Singing Fingers that used to record while you drew. And my 9-year-old, when he was like 2, recorded a whole bunch of images with him singing and playing while he drew. And those have been on my device, even though he hasn't played with it for years. And before I upgraded iOS 11, knowing that app would disappear, I made a video plugging my iPad into my Mac and using QuickTime. I made a video of all those things, and I played, as you can play them back, touching all the drawings too. You draw and color over it, so that I had those, because it's like they would be gone forever. And the other one that's gone that people keep asking me about is ClearTune.
Yeah.
So people are like, what do we do now? And it's like, well, there's 100 apps on the App Store, but people liked that particular interface a lot. So I've got an email out to the developer. I don't know if he'll answer or anything, but I just thought I'd give it a shot.
That's been a real staple in the music teaching community.
Yeah, and beyond, even just the musician community. So had an email today from somebody that's a guitar and ukulele player that's like, that's been my tuner. What do I do now? So I gave him a couple suggestions, but it's interesting to see all those apps that are gone. Amy Burns really made the point with her list of, I know she had 4 or 5 pages of apps of elementary sort of, sound making apps that are just gone. And I don't know what those people are going to do that have been relying on those apps.
Well, and I think part of that too is if you've got like 4 or 5 pages of apps that you are really making use of, it may be time just to kind of freeze that iPad and use it as is and just don't update the thing. You're not going to have the latest and greatest iOS 11, but you've got all those apps, and if you're really into using those, use one device and leave it alone. It'll still work for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If that is something that is an option for someone, maybe if there's an old iPad sitting around, or if you're just not, if you don't need to update, I guess you could just leave one around. I don't know. It's funny. It's funny to think how we kind of live in an age now where we almost expect software to be permanent, even though it's still just sort of as a ephemeral, But we pay now. Many pieces of software have subscription fees built off of this notion that it's sort of moving on forward into time with us. But then we still have, even in the early 2000s, we still have the same problem that, you had when you bought a piece of software back in the 90s for your PC. And then when you get a new computer, sometimes that software is just gone. The box is just sitting on your shelf.
I've got a few boxes.
Well, that was one of the earlier or more recent versions of Finale. I can't remember if it was Finale 25 when it came out, and it no longer worked on 32-bit Windows machines. And Macs have been 64-bit for a long time. And Finale just said, or Make Music just said, we're done. And I had as my test machine a 32-bit Windows tablet, and that kind of ended my time with Windows again. So I don't have a Windows device right now to test anything with, because basically nothing other than Notion will run on it. So yeah, it's happened on all the platforms, and recently even with some other apps and things that we've seen for music.
Right. All right, so iOS 11 brings a ton of new features. I got a list of them all right here. I was just on Apple's website before I hit the call button. Let me run down some of these. I'm curious on your thoughts on some of these features. So the very first thing that I thought of when I thought of, like, what's the most striking new thing about iOS 11, it's almost the first thing you see when you turn it on for the first time after updating, is the new dock. And the dock is functionally similar at first. It's this strip of 6 apps that permanently live at the bottom of your iPad's home screen, no matter which page of apps you're on. But it doesn't look as locked to the bottom of the screen. It sort of floats above your content. And I think that that's going to surprise some people. I was actually in the room when one of my music colleagues had just finished the installation, and he was like, "What is going on?" Like, it was shocking to him.
And it's not just six icons anymore. You know that, right?
Yeah, so you can fit up to 13 apps on a smaller sized iPad and up to 15 apps on a 12.9-inch iPad Pro.
But then you also have to factor in the most current running apps, though, too, right?
Right, so then in addition to those 13 or 15, there's a little line, and then there are 3 apps to the right of all of those permanent apps that display the 3 most recently used apps. And the idea is that this dock, not only does it give you way more apps that you can have, right underneath your fingertips, but you can now make this dock appear when you're in another app. So if you're running an app like Messages home screen and you want to really get to an app quickly that's on your dock, you swipe up from the very bottom of the iPad screen, and then the dock floats above the app in the bottom space of the screen, and then you just tap on what you want.
And I love it. It's way faster to get to apps. Plus, it ties in with the multitasking stuff too. So, any of those apps that you're going to use a lot, if you want to multitask with them, that's where I store those apps at. Is in that row of 15 in the dock there.
Right. Yeah. At first, the dock. I really like some of those multitasking gestures that have been there forever, like the swipe 4 fingers up to see all of your recent apps and swipe 4 fingers swiping left and right to switch apps. But I'm really starting to get accustomed to this gesture of swiping up with 1 finger for the dock. It's starting to become second nature to me. And yes, so multitasking ties directly into that. So have you guys been enjoying using the new multitasking features?
A little, not as much as I thought I would, but again, like you just mentioned, you kind of have to retrain yourself on a bunch of this stuff in trying to remember to swipe up for that dock and remember that I do have 15 apps there, and then remembering that that the multitasking stuff has totally changed. It's going to take some time to get used to it.
Unlike you and Paul, I just somewhat recently got my iPad Pro, so that has been, I've been trying to just figure out multitasking on that device just as a whole, because I wasn't using it very much. The 2 places I've used it pretty extensively are either like church, where I'm taking notes and I've got a Bible open, or personal devotions where I've got a journal open and I've got the Bible open at the same time. Or the other way that I've been using it is with some ukulele transcriptions, where I have Notion open on one side and a PDF on the other, and I've been working like that. So I'm not going to miss the old way of swiping through the second app of multitasking. That was always a pain. So if you had 40 apps that would multitask, you had to swipe through an entire list and hope that you found it. Whereas now, either you have to have it in your dock, or you need to open it and then go back to your dock and open the other program and then multitask with it. So I'm not going to miss that part, but it's kind of curious to see how we'll start using multitasking more, because up until now, really, even with multitasking that we had, the iPad's still been basically a 1 app at a time sort of device. Although I know you've done a few more things with that, Robbie, in the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, well, what you're talking about, running 2 apps side by side, is a feature that existed before iOS 11 and now after. I find myself using that paradigm of having 2 apps open side by side in the same way, more or less, than I did before iOS 11. But what you're describing is definitely a flaw of the previous system, where once you got an app side by side with another app, you had to drag down from the top of the screen on one of those 2 apps, and then it would basically just be an endlessly scrolling list of your other apps. And then you had so if the app that you wanted to change to be side by side, let's say you're using Notes on the left side of the screen, and you want to change the right side of the screen from Mail to Fourscore, but you used Fourscore like a week ago. Now you're just scrolling an endless series of icons. Whereas now, you drag up from the dock at the bottom, And then to get an app into multitasking, you basically tap your finger on it from the dock and then drag it off the dock and onto a side of the screen, which makes it a lot quicker if the app you want is on the dock. But have either of you guys tried to get an app into multitasking in iOS 11 that is not on the dock?
Yes. So what I have to, I mean, you just have to go and open it, and then it goes into that right-hand side. So then you go back to your original app that you were in, and then you go back to the dock and drag it over.
There's another way.
Oh, what is the other way?
Well, if you're on the home... Okay, so let's say that you've got Notes on one half of the iPad and Mail on the other, and you want to put Fourscore in the spot where Mail is. So you go to the home screen, and you find the Fourscore app, and then what you can do is no longer, when you touch and hold on an app, does it immediately make them start jiggling, you know, like the mode where you can delete an app or put them into folders. Mm-hmm. Now what happens is if you hold a little bit less long, like you hold for a second but not like, you know, for a long time, you can actually start moving the app icons before they start to jiggle and show the little X's. And from that position, you can, while holding the app Fourscore underneath your finger, you can launch Notes and then continue dragging the Fourscore app icon into the place of where you want to drop it.
So you'd have to be on the same screen.
Right, well, it requires you to hold the app with your finger while launching into another app. And then it's actually like a drag and drop. You're dragging an app from your home screen into view with another app. But it's not very fun. It does not feel right.
I think I like my other option of just opening the other app and then just going back to the other one.
Well,
it makes sense.
When you have 15 apps in your dock, you know, how many I don't know. Hopefully they're all there at some point.
Right. Well, I started with this notion of, okay, what are my 15 favorite apps? And then it's very quickly turned into, okay, actually, what are the 15 apps that I want to use in multitasking mode the most?
Good thought.
And I found that that's a slightly different list of apps. So I'm still working on it. But yes, it's very much, it's not really perfect yet, I don't think.
Well, and now that there's been a slew of updates in the last couple of days from different companies that are now supporting the multitasking thing, it's becoming a little bit more common. But I know when I was running the beta, it was kind of hard to test it because some of Apple's apps supported it, but not a lot of other people's apps did. So, and I'm still getting used to the whole floating window thing and kind of flicking it down and moving it around. I still haven't quite figured that all out yet.
I think that's technically called the slide over window.
There you
go. And it's funny because you launch it by, like, if you're in an app and then you drag another app off the dock and just sort of let it go, it will open in a small window over top the app you were currently in. But then from there, you can drag down from the top of that window to more permanently dock it on 25% of the screen next to the previous app you were using, in which case you can see the full content of both apps at the same time. And then, of course, from there, you can change the ratio from 25%, 75% to 50% and 50%.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Did I explain that right?
Yeah, because like that floating window covers some of the content of that app behind that. I've had that where it's like, I can't see what's back there. And then I tried to put it in the split screen mode, and whatever app it was I was trying to do it with would not support that at all.
Right, yeah. So did you know that you can actually, once you get two apps side by side, 50%, 50%, if you drag yet a third app off of your dock, but you drag it on the dividing grid between where the two apps are, and let go, you can actually get a slide over window on top of 2 existing apps. So you can have 3 apps open at the same time.
Oh my gosh, I just did that. You're right.
Hmm.
So now oh my gosh. Are they all active? No.
That's a good question.
No, they are not. When you open that third app, the only app that is actually active is that one that's floating.
Yeah, you're right. I'm doing it now.
So you can see the other content, but it's kind of like the old iOS 10 multitasking thing where only one of those apps was actually active.
Right. So until you actually dock the window, it's nothing else behind it is active. Now, hold on. If you do slide over, if you're looking at only one app and you drag an app off of the dock into slide over, you actually can still interact with the content of the app that's underneath the slide over window. So I don't know. It's just very inconsistent and messy.
Well, I think basically what it boils down to is if you have 2 apps open, both of them are active. You can interact with content from both of the apps until you dock one or put it into that split screen mode and try opening a third app. That's where only the floating one is active.
Yeah, I think actually that's a good way to remember it.
Which is still kind of cool because now we have 3 apps we can look at, and for whatever reason, I don't know.
Yeah, now the slide over window can also be invoked by dragging from the right side of the iPad screen. The most recently opened app in slide over will appear. And you can actually, when you're dragging an app off of the dock into a popover window, if you keep dragging it all the way to the right or left side of the screen, it will open immediately in that docked view where it's an active app versus like a popover window.
And like you were just saying, that sliding over from the right-hand side of the screen, that only works sometimes.
Right. Well, and then it's way more confusing if you're in an app that has a gesture like where you swipe from the right side of the screen.
See, that's the only problem with multitasking right now is it's still in its infant stage and people are still trying to figure it out. But it's going to be cool when everyone's doing it the same way. It's going to work really cool because I can start to see huge advantages like with notes in mail in my I use PDF Expert in the file manager, the files app. Those apps are working pretty darn well with the multitasking right now, and it's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what have you guys found even in just the past week of teaching? Are there any app combinations where like using 2 apps in multitasking mode has like changed the way that you're using your iPad in the classroom?
Taking notes and having my attendance open at the same time, or having Fourscore open and taking notes. It used to seem like using the 4-finger swipe was quick enough. I could switch between apps quick enough. But now that I have that advantage, having 2 apps open at the same time, I use it in class. And of course, Fourscore is one of those apps usually.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris? Anything working for you?
Oh no, I'm getting so darn farsighted as I'm into my mid-40s here that I purposely bought the iPad Pro so I could see music clearer with or without my glasses. So I've been running Fourscore full screen so that I can just see music. So again, the only time I've been doing multitasking is either personal devotions or church or some transcription stuff at this point. So I don't know. I'll probably add some more in the future, but in the classroom setting where I'm just trying to teach, I just need to be able to see my music.
Now, yeah. Chris, with your choral stuff, you're doing mostly with choral stuff, right?
Well, choral/ukulele stuff, yeah.
Are you usually using your iPad in portrait mode or landscape?
Well, that's a good question. Most of the time right now, my iPad is in portrait mode, but I start off the class using Keynote. And so we use Keynote for the start, and then when we get to music, I detach my iPad from the projector, and then put it up on my piano, and the kids have their iPads where they're using still Shobi for their music. So I kind of move a couple things, and of course, when the iPad is doing the keynote stuff, it's in landscape mode. But generally, for my music, it's portrait.
Now, Apple just released a bunch of updates for Keynote. Did you notice anything interesting there?
Not really. It's just, and also part of the problem too is, remember, I've got this older MacBook, so I can't even update Keynote on my MacBook. So I can't even really take advantage of a lot of the new stuff that they're doing on Keynote for like the iPad and the Mac, because I can't even backwards install it on my Mac. So I have to be very careful about what I do right now.
So are you still creating Keynote content mostly on your Mac or on your iPad?
I do most of the creation on my iPad, but it's very, very basic. Learning targets, changing warm-ups every day, editing announcements, that sort of thing.
What do when your principals come in, do they expect to see that? What do they expect to see on your screen?
They expect to see a learning target when they walk in, and then that's their main thing that they're looking for, is that you have a learning target, and then they're also looking for student engagement. Those are the two things that they're looking for.
What about standards? Do you have to have the standards that you're targeting as well?
We don't have to have the standards.
What about you, Robbie?
I don't have to have any of that.
Okay.
Typically, I will have an agenda on the board, and it usually is fairly detailed as to what we're going to accomplish, and most administrators are pretty pleased with the amount of detail that's there, even though it's not really worded in any particular type of education jargon.
So, and you're using what to do that?
I use Keynote, but I'm using my Mac.
Okay.
But I'm pretty into making the as interactive deck of Keynote slides as I can. My new favorite thing, it's a little tangent real quick. My new favorite thing is I've got my warm up all automated in Keynote. I've got these tracks from there's an old book for choirs called Solfege Bingo, that is like these recorded tracks of a singer singing solfege, and then you get a little bingo card, and when you hear the pattern, you put a little chip on it. But then there's like a version without the syllables. It's just a clarinet playing the pitch, so you have to do it by ear, which is kind of cool. So I took these files into GarageBand, and I added a drone pitch, so you can hear how the intervals of each track are relating harmonically to the drone. And then I put those files in my Keynote slides as warm-ups. So the very first thing my students do, at least what I'm experimenting with now, is I find that if there's a feeling that classes started without them, they move faster. So I actually, the second the first person is sitting in their seat with their instrument put together, I hit that track on, and then it's basically call and response. Oh. So they hear a pattern, they play it back. And then after that, my next slide is... I have the breathing gym videos, and I just choose like a 1 or 2 minute excerpt from that series, and that's like my breathing exercise for the day.
Yeah, I agree with you about the getting class going, and then they move faster.
I also love the idea of like the very first thing that we do together as one. So I love that order that happens when I step on the podium and everyone is silent, but I can still get that just later in the process.
Right.
So, okay, so Keynote, yeah, so I haven't played a whole lot with any of the iOS changes to iWork. My understanding is that they just added support for the stuff that is the mainline features of iOS, things like dragging and dropping from one app to another and all that stuff.
Yeah, that does change quite a bit when you go to like Keynote and you see the chooser for the files. It comes up in that entirely new outlook, or that entirely new landscape, and that causes your heart to skip for a beat for a second when you're wondering where your file went, that you were used to just being the most recent one in that in that list. So it's still there.
Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I'm doing this for the first time. I didn't see that they changed this. So
Oh, yeah, it kind of takes you away for a second. You're like, what happened to my? Oh, there it is. Okay.
oh, but this is amazing though. This is exactly what I've been screaming for years. So when you open any of the iWork apps, it shows you the Files app basically.
Right. That's what I thought it was. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I just opened Pages, but here's the Files app. But it's not. It's Pages or Keynote or whatever. It's kind of weird.
This makes so much sense conceptually because if you were on a Mac and you wanted to open a Keynote file, what would you see? You would see the same system Finder window that you would see in any app when you try to open a document, which is basically like a little Finder window in the middle of your app, prompting you to tell you which one of the files in your hard drive you would like to work with.
Correct.
Yeah, this makes a lot of conceptual sense to me. So I guess we should talk about the Files app next.
I love it. That's the reason to upgrade, or one of the reasons right there. Jeez, oh Pete's.
What was that called? Jeez, Pete's?
Yeah, Jeez, oh Pete's. I don't know. Was that on a cartoon? I don't know where I picked that up at. Hope I didn't offend anybody.
Oh, no. Oh, I haven't even hardly used the Files app yet. Again, I've only had it since Tuesday, and I'm still working in the workflow that I had last spring, just on a larger iPad. So as these next couple weeks and months go here, I'll get a chance to play with it more and see what it can really do. I know, Robbie, you were so excited about it that you sent me a text message with a video capture of it this summer, and I thought that was the best. I laughed so hard when you sent that because you were so excited about Fourscore and being able to drag and drop stuff. You were just, that was fun.
Yeah, let me really quickly, for those listening, summarize these two features. So you can now drag and drop stuff from one of the two active apps to the other. So if you've got Notes on one side of the screen and Safari on the other, you can tap and hold on an image from a Safari website and drag that image into Notes, just like you can on a Mac. And the stuff that Apple has baked into drag and drop is not just like images and files, but it's like text, URLs. I'm learning more and more every day about something you can drag and drop. Like it's just wild what they've thought through. But one of the most obvious applications of this is to use it in conjunction with the new Files app, which is basically like the Finder, but on iOS. And, it replaces the old iCloud Drive app, which was like a really weak, limited version of your iCloud folder. But what essentially you can now do is you can open the Files app, and now you see all of your files on iCloud Drive, not only iCloud Drive, but other drives too, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, you can basically like have Files app open on one side of the screen and an app like Fourscore. And, of course, only just this past week are developers coming out with support for all these iOS 11 features. So I was lucky enough to be doing the Fourscore beta over the summer. So I had Fourscore on one half of the screen, Files app on the other. And I think the video I sent you was me basically just dragging highlighting 15 files in the Files app and just like all Score PDFs and just dragging them all into Fourscore at once. And then watching Fourscore, processing, and then boom, all of them are in my Fourscore library.
Fourscore didn't do a bad job in the past with their services menu, but having the Files app is a whole nother ballpark. Like you said, take 15 PDFs and drag them over at once. It's nice.
That's something that would take me at least like 7 minutes to do on iOS 10. And with Fourscore and the Files app, and the thing too is that the Files app, you can like select many things at once. You start holding on a particular file, and then with that finger pressed down, you take another finger and then you tap on other files, and it basically just adds them all to the queue. So then when you do the release, you're dealing with multiple documents at once. So it's just really powerful. Like that kind of stuff is what sends me back to my Mac. When I run into something like that, okay, I need to move a lot of files from one spot on my computer to the other. Time to take out my Mac. And that's not a thing anymore.
Well, and like you just mentioned, holding you start dragging one PDF. Like I have all my PDF music in Box, and I've got them separated into different folders. I've got a high school and a middle school and one for euphonium and one for piano. I can start dragging a file from like my euphonium folder, and then I can switch with my other finger to my piano folder, add a couple more files to it. Then I can go to my high school band folder and add a couple more files. And within like just a few seconds, I can drag and drop all those files at the same time into Fourscore. It is a lot faster.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. So Files app, you mentioned you use Box. Files app adds support for third-party document providers, and they're no longer second-class citizens. Like, no longer does Dropbox need to make up their own mangled file system that exists only inside of the Dropbox app. When you install an app like Dropbox, it shows up in the Files app just like it would on a Mac, and you can interact with those files in exactly the same user interface as all of your iCloud files, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, you've got access to Google Drive, iCloud, Box, Dropbox, and some other apps that you have. Like
now, Google's update hasn't come out yet.
It's not working?
Google Drive doesn't support it yet. And actually, Dropbox came out with an update supporting it, but when I tap on the Dropbox icon on my Files app, it takes me into the old style view where it like launches a little Dropbox app within an app. Do you know what I mean? Like it's for whatever reason it's not working yet, even though their most recent release notes say that they've added the feature.
You're right, it's not. So you can see the Dropbox, but yeah. And Google Drive pops up a little pop-up window thing too. Does it let you drag files over? Nope.
No. So if in iOS 10, if an app supported, it used to be called the document provider, which was basically like if you were in an app and you wanted to open, like let's say you're in Pages and you want to open a file from within Google Drive. Well, you would hit the open button and then a little window would pop up in the middle of the screen, and that window would allow you to choose which cloud drive service you wanted to use. But the cloud drive provider would define that user interface. So Google had their own way of you interacting with it. Dropbox had another. What happens now is if an app like Dropbox or Google Drive supports the Files app, then what you get instead of that view is instead a little mini Files app shows up in its place. So Google Drive and Dropbox, their updates for whatever reason have not yet accommodated this new paradigm. So when you are in the Files app and you tap on either of those two options, a little pop-up window shows up, and you can still drill down into files and folders within that service, but you can't take advantage of all the nice new Files app stuff like drag and drop.
Yeah, it kind of reverts back to iOS 10, but it'll be here. Like I said, once everyone gets this figured out, it'll work. Google Drive and Dropbox will work as slick as iCloud and Box does right now.
Right. Chris, do you have a file, like a third-party cloud drive service that you use?
Well, mine, ultimately I've been moving more and more to iCloud now that I've got the 2 terabytes of storage that's included. I just don't have the need for Dropbox like I once did. So my reliance on Dropbox has been declining, and it's kind of weird. When I originally bought a Chromebook, I was given I don't remember, 100 gigabytes of free storage, and then after 2 years they took that away. So I'm back down to 15 gig of storage on Google too. So I kind of back away, and I do not link my school accounts on my personal device. I just figure that's a safe thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the iCloud stuff over the summer, I found myself doing the same thing, moving a lot of my Dropbox stuff to iCloud just because I wanted to test out the Files app. And I got to say, iCloud Drive works so much better than it did 1 or 2 years ago. It's really a viable storage provider. It's missing a couple features that I would like it to have. Things like sharing a folder with another user. But I just use Dropbox for that now.
And so you pay for the extra storage in iCloud?
I do, yeah. And I actually have moved enough of my Dropbox stuff to iCloud that I don't think I'm going to have to pay for Dropbox the next go round.
Yeah, I pay like the 99 cents a month is all for iCloud, and it's giving me enough right now. So
I had to start paying when I started using the iCloud photo library.
Mm-hmm. But boy, is that nice, though. Boy, is that nice.
Yeah, having your photos in sync across all your devices is pretty sweet.
I have too many pictures. I can't do it.
Oh, Paul, I've got 50,000 pictures or something like that there, and it just kind of just goes.
I know, but my photos library on my Mac is like 135 gigabytes.
Yeah, but it gets compressed when it gets stored. And plus, remember, you're looking at 2 terabytes. If you pay the $10 a month, it's 2 terabytes of storage.
Yeah.
So it's, you got plenty of room. I've got everything pretty much that I've got, and it's other than videos, because I have a number of videos that I've converted to MP4s, and those are still on a Mac on an external drive. But otherwise, my entire music library is in Music Match, and all my photos are in the iCloud Photos, and it just works. So I can't argue with any of that.
Yeah, I just haven't decided to pony up the $10 a month. $1 a month, I'm okay with, but
Yeah, yep. So here's what I don't know about the Files app so far. It does seem to have effectively turned the paradigm of working with files on an iOS device into more the old Mac style of, like, when you're in an app and you want to work with a file, you're looking at the same type of user interface no matter what you do. But there's something that a Mac does that I don't know if the Files app does, and this is that when you're in the Finder isn't just simply a place where you organize files and browse for files. It's also a place where you launch files. Like, sure, I can drag a Word document from one folder into another, but if I double-click it, it will open it in the app that I have told my Mac is the app I want to use to work with that file. And that is something that I haven't figured out about the Files app on iOS yet. Like, yeah, the Apple stuff, like if you're in Files and you tap on a Keynote file, it'll open right in Keynote, and it'll save back to that location directly. But I don't know if that works for third-party apps yet. Do you guys have any insight on this?
I do not.
I haven't tried, but I know Paul and I have, we've talked with Personas in the past, and like Notion has such good integration with iCloud and background working with stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if theirs was going to figure that out real soon. It's right. Almost painless. If you're using Notion and you're using the iCloud storage folder for Notion, you can basically almost 2 people can work on it at the same time. It's pretty crazy.
All right, so if you're in the Notion app on iOS, any Notion file that you've saved on a Mac into the Notion iCloud folder will appear automatically when you launch Notion. You see a list of all of your iCloud projects.
Yep.
And then when you go on the Mac side, there's this folder. I don't know if the new Files app obliviates the need for this folder or not, but basically there's a per app folder. So like there's a Notion folder in your iCloud drive where all those files live.
Right.
But what I'm talking about is I'm in the Files app on my iPad right now, and I am now looking into the Notion folder. If I tap on one of these Notion files, it doesn't actually open it in Notion.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Okay,
I have to.
Yeah, it gives
yeah,
you
I
a
have to
blank
go into
screen.
the Notion app first. Right. So I would love to think that Apple is gonna or has released the appropriate tools for developers to make this work.
Oh, whoa. If I'm in that... Oh, wow. You cannot even use the little open in, or what is that, the share icon in the Files app. So I did that, like what you did. I went into the Notions folder inside of the Files app, tapped on a Notion file, and there isn't even like an open in Notions option from within that Files app. So there's no way to go from Files and open it into Notion. There's nothing. And like Robbie, like you said, it'd be nice if you could just tap on it and it would pop open.
Yeah, that's kind of the direction I hope it's going. And you know, I know there's a lot of issues they have to sort out. You know, I would love to see down the road a default apps kind of paradigm for iOS. Like, I feel like that would be not only great for things like music and for maps, like if you're a Google Maps user, but I feel like it would also allow the possibility to define, like, okay, on my iPad, if I'm in Files and I want to open a PDF, I want to open it in this app.
Yeah.
Now here.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to get off on a tangent on PDFs. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to get on a tangent about Files. I mean, I'm here looking. This is bizarre. I've noticed this before. When I was writing my book, I basically tried everything I possibly could with iCloud. Like, I pushed it in every possible different direction I could. And okay, I'm in the pixelmator folder right now. Pixelmator is a third-party iOS app for, it's like Photoshop. It's actually a really nice app. It syncs between Mac and iOS really beautifully. They actually just announced they're making a pro version of it, which I'm going to be happy to throw my money at. It's a really nice app. When I open the Pixelmator folder on my iPad and tap on a file, it opens it.
It does.
In the Pixelmator app. Yes.
It does.
Just like as if it was a native, like iWork, like as if it were an Apple-made product.
Just like it should.
Right. So I don't know how, like, if they did something to make that work or what, but that's how it should work. You're right.
we're gonna have to get hold of the Notion people and say, get to work, guys.
I don't know if it's something that's under their control or not. I have no idea.
Well, if Pixelmator can do it, then Notion can.
That would be the logical conclusion. Yes.
Interesting. So now we're gonna have to play with other apps and see what other ones open like that and are free.
Right. It's very inconsistent. I tried it all. There was a period of time where I just tapped on stuff, and then here's the funny thing. All right, now this is the last thing I'll say on this subject. I can go down the rabbit hole. If you move a Pixelmator file outside of the Pixelmator folder, but still keep it in iCloud Drive, it will no longer function that way.
Oh, wow.
So it's just wildly inconsistent. And I would just love to think that in like 3 or 4 years, the Files app will function, enough like the Finder that I don't have to really think about where I put a file. I can just leave whatever file I want in whatever cloud storage I want and open it in whatever app I want.
It's coming. It's coming.
I need a shower now after explaining that.
Hey, GarageBand opens into GarageBand. iMovie does not open into iMovie, though, from the Files app.
Well, don't get me started on GarageBand. I did a blog post last year. Logic now, you can save a GarageBand file. I'm sorry, you can bounce down a Logic project into a GarageBand project that you can open on iOS. But I'll link the blog post into the show notes. I don't need to get into it now. But basically, in trying to do this, I interacted with 4 possible different places that a GarageBand file can, by default, be saved on a Mac. I interacted with the Logic folder. I interacted with the GarageBand folder. I interacted with the GarageBand folder that lives in iCloud Drive, the Mac version. And I interacted with the iOS version of GarageBand that lives in iCloud. I interacted with all 4 of those different folders in this process of just simply trying to bounce down a Logic project so that I could open it on my iPad.
Link that in the show notes because I want to mess with that. What about annotation? Have you guys used the annotation tools in iOS 11?
Yeah, it's everywhere now.
It's awesome.
Yeah, any app in Notes, even in iBooks, pretty much anywhere you are viewing a PDF or a photo, there's a little markup option now.
And I was lamenting that I could not put text in there, like in a screenshot. I'm like, oh, I want to type text, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. And then I saw down in the bottom right hand corner there was a little plus button. You hit the plus button, and there's a text tool. Just had to figure out how to do it. So it's there. Screenshots, I love those. I've used those a ton.
Yeah, for people like us who have blogs where we're using screenshots a lot, that's a really cool feature. So screenshots now, when you take one, it shows up as a little thumbnail in the lower left corner of the screen, and you can let it just sit there and it'll eventually go to your camera roll. But if you tap on it pretty soon afterwards, it'll take you into a markup view where you can basically annotate it, like draw some arrows, type some text on it, and then once you act upon that screenshot, you can just delete it. It doesn't go to your camera roll.
Yeah.
Have you guys used that at all? Like Chris, have you found yourself taking advantage of that feature at all?
No, not yet. I mean, I've had a couple screenshots and they've floated there, but I haven't needed it in the application where it was at, and I didn't need that to annotate, so I just kind of just let it be. What do you do with it once it's there? I mean, do you just leave it there and then just wait for it to fade away, or do you tap it and send it away? I mean, I'm not sure what you do with it once you've got it there.
When it's down in the bottom left-hand corner, you mean?
Right, yeah.
Well, like if I have something I want to annotate and I take a screenshot of it, tap on that, I write all over it, draw some arrows, put some text on it, whatever, and then I click on the share button, and I can email it, or I can send it as a message or save it to my files or whatever. But then, like Robbie was saying, when I'm clicking on the done button, you can hit delete, and it's just like, it does not go to your camera roll anymore. Because I had like all these screenshots cluttering up my camera roll for years, and now they're going to be they're not going to be cluttering up anymore. Yay!
You can also swipe them away when they show up in the lower left corner. You just swipe left, and it'll.
And then where does it
save
go
to
if
the
you
camera.
swipe left? Oh, it just waves. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you swipe left, then
Yeah.
it does go to your camera roll, right?
Speaking of annotating, there are some new Apple Pencil features for iOS 11. In particular, when you are drawing in a note, you no longer have to tap a button and create a field on the note where you draw. Like you can just basically draw anywhere you want. I think it's called inline notes.
Correct. And did you realize that when you handwrite with your Apple Pencil in notes, that now that turns into searchable text?
I did.
That's pretty cool. It actually works.
It's basically the reason that I did not pay for Evernote again this year.
Yeah.
And you've been a major Evernote guy, right, Robbie, in the past?
Yeah, I mean, the more every iOS update, ticks one more checkbox of reasons I don't need Evernote. I mean, I'm glad Apple is taking the Notes app seriously. It can't be everything to everyone, and Evernote I still keep around as kind of a junk drawer. But the Notes app first of all, it's just elegant and beautiful in a way that I find a little bit nicer for organizing thought. But they also are adding stuff that other app developers can't really do. Like, one of my favorite things is if your iPad is turned off and you tap the Apple Pencil to the screen, it'll quickly open a brand new note and lets you just instantly start scribbling on the screen.
Yeah, that's handy. It's like right there.
Oh, and the ability to use notes for scanning now and, signing PDFs and all sorts of stuff. So that's also kind of a nice new addition.
Yep.
Right, and the pencil can do that inline drawing thing in Mail as well.
Yeah,
That I did not know.
Yeah, I knew that, but I haven't tried it yet.
Well, I don't use the Apple Mail app.
What do you use?
Spark?
Yeah, Spark. Sometimes I flip over to Airmail if they have a new cool feature.
I keep on wanting to try to figure out Spark, but it just freaks me out. Just, it's arranged differently, and I just haven't taken the time to settle in and use it. So
There's a little check box or like a little button you can flip in the upper right corner that just takes your inbox and it just reorganizes it normally, like earliest to latest.
I'll have to play with it later. Yeah, I've got Spark. Oh, see, I just deleted an email. Oh, man. Okay, I'm out of Spark. I'll play with it later.
Let's talk sometime. I can tell you all about it.
All right, good.
It's good. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, the Apple stuff that's the thing though. Like, I can't imagine Spark. Well, maybe they could add like a, draw with the Apple Pencil feature. I mean, it seems like it's something that's just a lot easier for Apple to bake into their own apps. But it is a very welcome change.
It is.
Now, Chris, you mentioned scanning in Notes. I think it's great that you can now scan a document right from the Notes app. But I have played with that a little bit, and I still really like designated scanning apps. Like, I don't think I'm going to stop using Scanner Pro.
I'm not going to stop using it either. I don't, when you scan it into Notes, it just does something weird. And Scanner Pro makes more sense in my head. Maybe it's because I've been using it longer, but I don't know. It just works for me, so I'm going to keep using it.
What do you think, Chris? Have you played with it a lot? Do you like the way it works?
Well, I like the video that showed how it works. I don't know if I actually used the functionality myself, but if somebody didn't have the need to scan a lot and just needed a document to quickly scan and sign, that would be a really good solution.
Yeah, you're right, and it's free and it's built right in, so it's a no-brainer for people that don't want to pay for Scanner Pro.
And
it actually uses. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it actually seems to almost use the same kind of feature as Scanner Pro 2 with the self-detecting edges and everything else. So.
Yeah, it actually uses, to my understanding, ARKit to figure out where, because you can scan an Apple Notes at a pretty severe angle, and it will still find the edges of the paper and correctly orient the page.
I don't know how that does that, man. That's pure magic right there. It's way above my pay grade. I know that.
Now, have you guys played with any ARKit apps?
Did you figure out Thomas the Tank Engine?
So we had an interaction on Twitter the other night where I basically said, I'm downloading anytime Apple releases a new technology, there's hundreds of novelty apps that are hot for a month that take quick advantage of the feature. And ARKit is basically this new protocol that allows app developers to create apps and games that use ARKit, which, is it's augmented reality. So you can do things like a game could make a video game level, but the level appears on your coffee table instead of, in its own universe. So anyway, I tweeted, I'm testing all the novelty ARKit apps, and then it was so funny, Paul, that you replied about Thomas the Tank Engine because that app was featured on the App Store. It was the exact same app I was just trying to figure out. And so basically, you can make a little you can make a little train track, and you can set it up so that when you're looking at the phone screen, it uses the camera to depict the train track on a table in your home. And you can walk around it from any angle and get in close to it and walk far away. And I'm trying to figure out this app designed for 2-year-olds. And my wife says, I'm showing her, I'm like, look at the train. I did eventually figure it out. It was deep within no, it wasn't in the settings. It was you had to beat some levels first. And then it was a button that you press from the main screen. So I finally got this train on our dining room table, and my wife is just Yeah, I don't think any 2-year-old is figuring that out.
We'll see, though. You know, after kids get used to this stuff, is it going to be something that's just second nature? I don't know.
There's a wild. I think the answer to your question is yes, definitely. I think it'll become very integrated, and to see some of the stuff that you can do with it already, and to think about where we might be with this technology in a few years, it's just insane. There's a great website called Made with ARKit. I'll put it in the show notes. It's a website that just features anything and everything that is done with ARKit, and there's some wild stuff.
Yeah.
Really wild.
Link it, because I want to see more in my free time.
There's one where someone creates a door, and when you're looking at your iPhone screen, he's like in the middle of he's just outside, and it makes this door appear where, like, when you look through the door, you see like a forest.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, that's pretty cool. But then he's walking around the door like 365 degrees, and when you walk around the back side of the door, it's just a door. But when you walk around the front side, it looks like the door goes to this like 3D animated forest scenery. And then he walks into the door and the whole phone screen is now like in this universe. And then he turns around and you're now in this universe, but you can see a door that leads out to the real world. It's insane.
Oh my gosh.
Sounds like Narnia.
Right, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah. Link to it. We'll play with it in our free time. What about the new keyboard app, or the new keyboard where you like flick the numbers down and such?
What size iPad do you have?
I have the big one.
Yeah, so tell me, all of us have the big iPad. My understanding was that this new feature is only for the smaller size.
I've seen it, though. I've seen it appear on mine.
Yeah, what the heck? I've seen it on my big one. I know I have. Or is it just because I've been playing with my little ones at the school here?
No, it was on mail or something. It must have been that I saw it.
Because you can already. That's the thing when they announced the feature. I had already been doing the thing on my large iPad where when you're typing a number, like the number 1, and instead of typing it, you hold and swipe up, you get the exclamation point without hitting the shift key.
Right.
I had been doing that. That's what I thought it was. I thought they were just bringing it to the smaller sized iPad screen.
Well, that's been on phones forever. I mean, though, too,
So it's not quite as big of a shift then.
I'll tell you what is a shift is the loss of iTunes with apps altogether.
Uh-oh.
That's a shift.
Yeah, we're going to get into this one, huh?
Well, I'm just saying it's a shift. And what was really funny is I was in touch with a company that's working on some scanning software, and their entire interface was if you want a music XML file from what you've scanned, you connect your iPad to your computer and drag it over. And I had to contact them and say, well, you better find another solution for that because that isn't going to work anymore. They said, what? So now they have to go find a way to export data out from in another way other than through that old archaic interface that's been around since 2010.
So here's my thoughts on this: it's a whole shift in paradigm, but in reality, the last time that I hooked the cable up between my computer and my iPad or phone, I don't know when it was. What about you guys?
You still have to sync an iPhone to iTunes if you want to do a tethered backup, which is the secure type of backup, which syncs everything, like not just the iCloud stuff. You have to do this if you want to save health data and some keychain stuff. And you have to, I think it was the last time so when I got my iPhone 7, I really wanted to keep my Apple Watch and my health app data. And so I had to plug it in to do that kind of backup.
Well, they're going to have to do something different because that's Apple apps.
I thought that even the backups weren't there anymore.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I think I saw a message that said backups will no longer be there too. The one thing that we will continue using a tether connection for is to upload movies that, again, are MP4s that aren't on Apple, or iTunes, whatever, that we've burned from other sources. So if I want my kids to have a new movie or something on their iPads, we still have to tether. That's the only way to get them there. But it might even get easier with with the files folder. But I wish that there was a way to, again, make a files folder accessible to everybody in a household versus just a single person, single user.
What about through family sharing?
Well, that you can just watch a video from a central thing, but if you want to take the device somewhere where it's not Wi-Fi connected and just watch it on its own, I don't think you can do it that way.
Yeah, so how are you putting those movies on the kids' iPads?
Well, that's the one thing you can do. You can connect a device and drag a movie over because that interface is still there. The music and movie interface is still there, but the app interface is gone.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Whew, you had me freaked out for a minute. All right.
I don't even think the backups are there. I mean, I really don't, but I could be wrong. Which easily, I'm wrong all the time. So
I did use iTunes to browse apps all the time, though. And I do miss that capability. I kind of feel like they're going to come up with an app store on the Mac for iOS. Kind of like there's a Mac app store. But I could be way wrong on that.
I've always thought that, all right, I'll say that this is a tangent for sure, but I'll be fast. I've always thought that it would make sense that the App Store had parity on all devices, that it was just the App Store, and that that you would be able to, because it is kind of handy to be able to be on your Mac, see a cool iOS app, and then instantly just download it straight to your phone, even from another device. What I think would be equally cool is if the iTunes Store kind of did the same thing. Like iTunes needs to be broken up into multiple apps. Like they've just got to take this iTunes Store part of it and separate it into a separate thing, much like the iPad and the iPhone have an iTunes Store separate from the music listening app,
Right.
And I've got to think that iTunes is heading in that direction on the Mac, like where instead of everything in one app, it's like a store app, a music app, a movies TV app, and a podcast app.
That's what I think, too. It's coming.
All right, iTunes removes, this is from MacStories.net. iTunes removes the App Store and more to focus on music, movies, TV shows, podcasts, and audiobooks. All right, sorry, I wasn't prepared to make a point when I read that headline. I think they're just... Oh, this is a really short article. Okay, I think they're just eliminating the app download, not the syncing to the phone. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
The apps themselves, you can't install apps from iTunes anymore either. That's gone.
Yep, it's gone.
And that was the biggest surprise, I think, of all of that, all the changes that were coming, because everything else had been kind of leaked, but that was the one that was kind of like, this came out of nowhere. I was like, wow. And then that was kind of fun to be able to tell a developer that, and you'd think that they'd be telling all the developers that somehow, and communicating, saying, hey guys, if you are using, the iTunes interface to transfer data, you better find another solution and use this. What do they call those things with the developers? Not a kit, but they've got those programs that are self-built.
An API?
Yeah, use this API instead. Yeah, there you go. So,
So, I don't know. I don't know if I'll really miss that feature, but I understand that. I mean, they got rid of iTunes University too a couple of months ago, and they renamed iTunes Podcasts to Apple Podcasts. So, I think the Mac version of iTunes is heading down this path of slowly being broken up into different components.
I think so too.
Like AT&T. Yeah.
Wait, what? What's up with AT&T?
Remember when AT&T used to be this huge mega company, and then the government made them split up in all those smaller businesses, and now AT&T is just growing larger again. So, that's just the way that things go. You get a monopoly, and then you get broken up. That's the way it goes.
Hey, I've got another iOS 11 thing that I found very handy in photos, the live photos. Have you guys played with the new capabilities there?
You can like edit them now, right?
Thank goodness. You can pick your key photo. That always drove me nuts. I mean, Apple didn't do it was a pretty good job, but it just seemed like maybe 1 out of every 5 photos I wanted a different frame to be the one that was the key frame. And now you can do that really easy.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't played with that yet.
Plus, you have the loop live photos, the bounce, and the long exposure. Have you played with that?
No.
Took me forever to find it. You have to, like when you take a photo on your phone and it's a live photo, you have to pull up in the middle of the photo to see those options. And I had to go Google it. I'm like, I know this is here, but I cannot find it. So I went and Googled it. And it's kind of fun to play with.
The thing I'm most excited about is on-screen video recording on the iPad.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, how? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you done it?
I've only done it just once just to see that I could do it. And the trick, if I don't know how it's been for you guys that have had the betas for so long, but you actually have to go into settings and turn that feature on. It isn't enabled automatically. And then you can also, with Control Center being able to customize it and take off some of those stupid things. Like I never understood why timer had to be one of my Control Center options because I don't use a timer. So it's nice that you can drag and drop some of those features on too. That's another nice addition.
Oh, so
yeah. So
where are you talking about turning that on at, Chris?
You have to actually go into settings, and in settings there's a category. And by the way, don't forget that settings has a search engine, which is useful.
For times like this.
Yeah, you drag down once you go into settings, and then there's a search bar that is revealed.
Yeah, I just don't know where it's at.
I remember doing it, but yeah, I forgot where it is.
Must be. It's got to be in the Control Center.
Oh yeah, duh. There's
Customize
underneath Control
control.
Center. Yep. Customize. There it is.
Yep, and that's where you turn it on. Yep.
And then once you turn it on,
So-
it looks like what? A little record button.
Yeah, and then when you touch it, it just starts recording.
So another one of those things that's incredibly useful for people like us who, blog about technology and like to share screencasts. It's just a real big time saver, especially because the way you had to do it before was to plug your iOS device into a Mac and record it through QuickTime.
And all the whack-a-mole Apple did over the years where you'd have an app that would allow for video recording, and then they'd delete it off the App Store, and that was, 20 different apps, I think, over the years that would do that, and then you keep sneaking it in, and so now Apple just included it. And I guess the issue is that the processors can finally handle it. Apple feels like that it's not a negative experience.
Right. So what do you guys think?
One more question about that
Go ahead.
screen recording. I forget, when you're doing the screen recording, does it record your voice if you talk along with it? I think it does the audio, like if I'm in GarageBand and I'm doing something, it records that audio from GarageBand, but I don't think it records my voice, does it?
No, but you can change the settings somehow. I was reading an article about it to record off of the microphone or like a snowball mic or something like that.
You use 3D touch. You, instead of just tapping the record button, you hold it and you press and hold, and then there's an option that comes up to turn the microphone on or off.
Oh, there it is. Yep. And of course, if you have an iPad, it's not 3D touch. You just long press it.
Right. So what do you guys think of the new Control Center? You can customize now the buttons, and I love, there's some apps that now have shortcuts that I really love using in Control Center. Things like the Apple TV remote is now a tap away, the Wallet app, the Notes app. There's a button you can, when you're in that screen in the settings to customize, you can even add a HomeKit button. And I have some HomeKit enabled devices like some Philips Hue light bulbs, and our front door lock is HomeKit enabled. So I have, like, from the Control Center, I just swipe up from the bottom of the screen and then tap any one of these buttons. And now I have all of these apps that I can get to from anywhere.
And as a side note, I saw that lifx bulbs are now HomeKit enabled as well, as long as you upgrade them. Do the like system update or whatever.
And they're significantly cheaper than Philips Hue, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're brighter and they respond a whole lot faster too.
And IKEA is their line is going to be HomeKit enabled if they're not already.
Nice. Hey Chris, in that control center, here's one
Yeah.
for you and me. There's a text size option too.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, bump that text size up. We won't need our glasses.
Well, as long as I'm reading have my reading glasses, that's all I need right now. But yeah, I mean, it's so funny. In 3 years, how much my nearsighted, or I'm farsighted, so how much I just can't see anymore.
A magnifier in there. You can get right to your notes from that control center. Yeah.
Now, the iPhone supports quick notes too, just like iPad. When you are locked and you swipe up to Control Center and then you tap on a new note, you don't actually have to put your thumb on the phone. It just takes you straight into a note, a brand new empty note. And it does the same thing like when you go to the camera, the quick way too, where like you can take pictures and you can see those recently taken pictures, but you can't actually go to your camera roll. It's the same kind of thing. But that's kind of nice for getting quick notes. I just wish that you could remap it to something like Drafts, like a far more useful note app. Because, that's got to be coming, like customizable. Like, this is a big step in the right direction, but I would love to be able to put third-party apps in the control center.
I'm sure it's coming.
Of course, now you have
Just
15.
like widgets.
Yeah, widgets. You have 15 spots in the dock now.
Yep. I love it. It's great. All right, let me run down some like miscellaneous stuff, and then like, I don't know, stop me. Like if you love it, I don't know, say amen, or stop me if it's interesting to you. Small features. Apple Pay is coming. You're going to be able to like, just like Venmo and PayPal, you're going to be able to iMessage someone money through Apple Pay, which is super cool. You can now follow friends in Apple Music, so you can, much like Spotify, you can see what your friends are listening to. You can follow their musical trends. Do not disturb while driving, so you can set your phone so that when it connects to your Bluetooth in your car, it will not notify you of stuff. Right and left-handed keyboards, so if you struggle with like a plus-size phone, you can like make the keyboard so that it jams all the way to the right. It's like using like a 5S sized iPhone again. You can now put tables in notes, iCloud family plans. So now you can share the same iCloud storage with your family. We're going to definitely do that for photos.
Oh, I need to see that because I didn't know that was there.
So if you pay for a 2 terabyte plan, you can now basically share that 2 terabytes with your whole family.
Oh, I got to do that because I keep getting the notice with my kids' iPads that they're full, for the 5 gig. So, and I actually think we pay 99 cents a month for my wife too, so we could eliminate $1 a month right there. Ooh, $1 a month.
Yeah, well, it adds up. It adds up.
Well, I'll tell you what, we have T-Mobile, and they just recently offered Netflix, free to subscribers. So we're saving $120 a year by having our cell service right now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Wow. Here's a sore one for me. iCloud Drive, you can now share a file in iCloud Drive, but you cannot share a folder. And I still have a lot of questions about this. Like much like my drilling through the Files app and trying to see how different types of files made by different types of developers act when they're put into various different cloud drives. Like I haven't tested this feature, but to my knowledge, it works reasonably well if it's an iWork file living in iCloud Drive. You can share it with another user, and you can both have it open on both of your devices at the same time.
Wait, say that again?
All right, so like if I'm in a Keynote file on my iPad, I can now share that file with another user in the same way that you can share a Dropbox or a Google Drive file with someone.
Well, that's been around for a while.
Well, but now it's any file living in iCloud Drive.
Okay, not just like iWork. Okay.
But see, I don't know how it responds. Like, I don't know if it works equally well for all types of developers. Like, let's see here. Oh, I see. Okay, I only get the option to click it when I'm in certain apps. So, like the Keynote app, it has a little option to invite someone to a file. But let's see here. So I'm looking right now at a PDF in my Files app. I'm wondering if I click on the share sheet. Yeah, okay. I can click a button that says Add People, and when I add someone, it allows me to invite someone by text message, email, Twitter, basically anything that's available to the share sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a link here, and I'm going to send it to you guys both in Twitter. And I'm very curious what happens if you guys try to type in this file. Like what happens?
And where did you do this from? From within the Files app?
From within the Files app. And that option to share the file appears no matter what file you were selecting. So to my knowledge, like this one that I'm about to share with you guys is a PDF. But to my knowledge, you can do this with any file that's in iCloud.
I haven't tried this. This is deep stuff here.
Well, it shouldn't be, though. It should work like Dropbox. You should just be able to share a file, period. Like, it shouldn't be very complicated. All right, you know what, here we go. I'm going to use, all right, I'm looking at a numbers document right now. Now, I should probably try something that's not proprietary. Like something like oh gosh, now I'm really overthinking this. Okay. Here we go. All right, I'm just going to try a PDF, something very manageable. All right, so I'm in Files, I'm opening the PDF, I'm clicking the share sheet, I'm copying the link, and now I'm going into the Twitter app where I am going to share this URL with each of you. And now I'm curious what happens when you try to open this.
And you sent it in Twitter. All right.
Oh, it's not pasting. All right. This is not going well.
Well, it's okay.
It's technology. Why would it?
Yeah.
But now, when you hit... Oh, you know why? I know why. When you were in the Files app... Oh, wait. Now I just got a link.
There we go. Yeah, so here's my question. What I would love to see is what happens if both of you respectively try to open that link and scribble something on this PDF. I would love to know if it will accurately sync it back to my device.
It says
document notification.
Document unavailable.
Yeah, I got a notification. The document is unavailable. The owner stopped sharing, or you don't have permission to open it.
All right, this feature is clearly not baked.
So,
like if I shared this with you in Dropbox, you would get a link and it would take you straight to that document in Dropbox,
right?
Where you would be able to download it or add it to your own Dropbox. Now, if it was in a shared folder, it would work like you would be able to actually open the file from your own computer and change it, and then it would sync the changes back to my device.
Right.
So it'll be there soon.
Yeah. I can't wait, is what I'm saying. It can't come soon enough, but yeah, I think it'll eventually be there.
Do you share files that a lot, Robbie? Back and forth between people from Dropbox?
Yeah, my music team is very collaborative. Our entire file system is in a shared Google Drive folder, and I actually hate using Google Drive, but it's what our county offers us free storage for, and one of the members of our team doesn't want to pay for another storage provider. So we use Google. I really do not like Google Drive on many different levels, but it's the one that we've settled on.
That's another podcast.
Yes, it is.
Actually, it was a podcast, I think, at one point.
Episode 4 of season 2, the orchestra director at my school and I did dig into this very deep, and we concluded more or less the same, that Google Drive is a hot mess when it comes to sharing.
What else have we missed?
Well, I only got one more on my list, but I'll try not to go on a tangent, but I'm very passionate about this. Apple is now releasing support for third-party speakers to work with HomeKit, and they're announcing a protocol called AirPlay 2, which I've looked up a little bit of the tech specs. AirPlay 2 is it's gonna make it easier for third-party speaker makers to integrate with AirPlay. Like, one thing it'll enable them to do is, if you're a third-party speaker, up until now, you're only really able to buffer a couple of seconds in advance. So like if you're streaming your music app from your iPhone to your speaker, they can't like buffer very far in advance. So like if the internet goes down for a second, then your music might skip. But now AirPlay 2 will enable them to buffer like multiple minutes in advance, and various other similar technical adjustments that will make it easier for third parties to get involved.
Because right now, the only people that can access AirPlay is just Apple's stuff, isn't it? No, that's not true. Never mind.
No, because you've got Reflector, you've got the Sonos stuff, you got a number of other things.
Sonos. So this is why I'm passionate about the subject. Sonos does not support AirPlay.
I thought they had some AirPlay-enabled devices, or did they have them and then drop them, or?
There are a lot of workarounds,
Okay.
But in general, I mean, there are workarounds that involve using only Sonos stuff, but they're all indirect and unreliable. The bottom line is, my hope is that AirPlay 2 might spark Sonos into rethinking their strategy. Now Sonos has an event scheduled for October 4th, where they're apparently going to announce some integration with the Amazon Echo. And I'm hoping that they have something to say about AirPlay 2.
Yeah, because the more people that jump on board, the more fun this will be.
Right,
Robbie,
exactly.
do you have any interest in that HomePod that's coming?
I'm going to say... I'm actually, and you guys know me, I'm very much an early adopter. I think whether or not I buy a HomePod is going to depend on this Sonos announcement next month. If the only way to get my phone and my Apple ecosystem of audio apps to work with speakers in my house is through Apple's own solution, then maybe I need to start selling my Sonos stuff and rethinking. But even the HomePod is very limited. Like, they haven't really announced a whole lot about it yet, but it doesn't even look like you can plug your TV into it, which would be an instant deal breaker for me.
And it was interesting that it was not even mentioned at this last event.
Yeah, I would imagine that there's going to be an event before the holidays that involves the iMac Pro and the HomePod.
Yeah, because the release date in the HomePod is still December of this year or so.
What about you guys? Are you interested in that at all?
We might have one that appears at our house around Christmas time. I could see that happening.
Santa might be nice.
But my wife would use it just as much if two different users could link to it to listen to music in the house. I'm sure she'd do that. And the sound is supposed to be incredible with one and just outstanding with two. Partially because the speaker apparently tests your room for reflective surfaces and cancels out sound waves as necessary to project appropriately for your room. That's just mind-boggling.
So yeah, and Robbie, like you said, if it hooks up to my TV and I can run my TV sound through it, be that's going to be a huge asset.
Yeah, we'll see. If you've never invested in any of the Amazon stuff or Sonos speakers, it's an instant purchase. Like it's a very appealing product. But for me, I've already got the nice home Wi-Fi speakers and the voice activated stuff. So I'm just trying to wait out to see if those two types of devices can talk to each other any better than they already do. And like if my Echo and my Sonos can talk to each other and I can voice command my music, that seems like a pretty good thing to stick with, at least for now.
Yep. All right, what do we got left? Anything?
My list is done. What do you guys have? Anything?
Well, I guess Paul, I would just say, Paul and I talked about it. Paul's not getting a new iPhone. I'm getting the 8S or the 8 Plus. Robbie, are you waiting for the X? Are you going to get the X?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm on the iPhone upgrade program, so all I have to do is just trade in my 7 and keep paying the monthly payment I'm paying. I'm really nervous about it, though. I mean, the iPhone upgrade program is a 2-year plan, but you get to upgrade after 12 months. So any month after the 12th month that you hold on to your phone, you're paying payments on it that you don't really need to be paying on it. Like, you might as well return it. So I'm kind of bummed about that, because if this iPhone 10 really ships to people like in early 2018 or middle of 2018, not only am I paying extra payments on my current phone, but I'm really worried that it's going to push my next phone into the next year. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm worried that it's going to make it so that now I can't even upgrade to the next year's phone until like February.
Right.
See, and I decided not to go for the X because T-Mobile has this whole new band of service that the new iPhones won't use. So, and that includes the Model 10s. So, it just my iPhone 6s is starting to feel laggy, especially now with iOS 11 on it. And I just said, well, I'm going to need a phone, but it doesn't make sense to spend another $300 on a phone when I can just get the 8, Plus for now, and then in a year or 2 years when the iPhones cover that band, then kind of upgrade. Although T-Mobile is going to be offering an upgrade plan too, but it gets kind of funky there because, again, they charge you for the extra memory and then the extra size. So if you trade in your device, you're really losing at that point too. There's no win. There's the same with the jump plan that T-Mobile had, is that when you went to trade in your device, they didn't give you credit for having larger memory or a bigger device. It was the same for the standard iPhone as it was for an upgraded one. And that was kind of a loss of money.
It's funny how we've come so far, largely due to the iPhone, but the carriers still just make it such a complicated mess.
It is very complicated. Yep.
I'm still kind of surprised that Apple hasn't rolled out their entire own cellular network across the country, to be honest with you, with their surplus of billions of dollars.
That would not surprise me.
Make everybody not reliant on anybody, not reliant on your cable company, not reliant on your cell phone company, and just pay Apple $20 a month for your internet access. I could see it happening.
But then would they become the new AT&T where they were told they'd have to break up?
Well, you never know. That decentralization has not been a common thread in government as of the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So here's my...
I gotta say this about the iPhone 10. The facial ID thing is a really big draw for me because Touch ID is pretty darn reliable until I get into the heat of a concert and my thumb is sweaty, and then I've had it fail multiple times. So if facial ID actually works and it comes into my iPad, I'm going to rejoice. I will sing hallelujah for that.
Yeah, it looks really nice. I mean, it's been criticized heavily, but I think that if it works as well as Apple says it works, it's going to have pluses and negatives, just like Touch ID. Like, one of the things I love to do with Touch ID is press the button while I'm pulling it out of my pocket, and it's unlocked and on the home screen when I am serious. You don't think about this stuff until these little inconveniences start to creep in. But on the other side of the coin, yeah, how many times have I gotten out of the shower and I can't open my phone?
Right.
With Touch ID. So I don't know. I think it'll be fine. People will get used to it. I have a feeling even that it might be good enough that, like I was really critical of the iPhone 7 doesn't actually have a home button. It's just a circle that uses haptic feedback. And I didn't think I would like that, but I tell you, when I touch my iPhone 6S Plus button and feel it, it just feels gross. It feels so wrong.
It's very, very different. I was just showing one of my students today, my 7, that button that's not a button. I'm like, this still freaks me out sometimes because my phone, I had to turn it off and I went to hit that button and it didn't do anything. And it's just, I get so used to it, that haptic feedback of tricking my mind into thinking that it's a button. It works really well.
So I have a feeling that the iPhone 10, like the swipe, the Face ID, and then like the swipe up gesture to unlock the phone, I have a feeling that that's going to get so second nature that pressing a button is going to feel gross, like going back to an old phone.
You're probably right.
Yeah, I'll join you on the iPhone 11, probably.
Well, what are they going to do? I mean, not that this is like our business to, predict, but like I actually think they might release an iPhone 9 next year.
I don't
They
know.
might.
I don't know.
I don't know what they'll do with the 10, if they'll go to 11 or actually it's funny that they call that 10 the X, because for years people have mispronounced the X in Mac OS 10. They pronounce it as an X instead of a 10. And so the joke is like, like Snow Leopard was like Mac OS 10,
10 or
10 point, like there's so much redundant 10s. My personal favorite joke is to just consider the possibility that the next full entire bezel-less screen iPhone will be called the iPhone 10 10.1.
Oh, we'll have to wait and see.
Oh, man.
Yes, we will. So here's my dilemma, guys. I need your advice. I think most of this content is good and will be helpful to people. I don't know if most people out there are going to listen to a 1 hour and 48-minute podcast. So do I split this into part 1 and part 2, or do I release it all at once?
I was looking at that time as well. Because, yeah, you're right. It's an hour and 50 minutes now. I don't know. Chris, what have you found? Have you got any feedback from our podcasts? Ours
No,
run
nobody
long.
ever says anything. Yeah, I think they just listen to it in when they get a chance anyway, and probably most people don't listen to it in one shot.
Yeah, I think just release it, and they'll listen to part of it and then come back later. I know that's what I've been doing with my podcast, because I live like 2 miles from the school, so Robbie, some of your podcasts take me 5 days to listen to, but just release it.
All right. Good advice. I don't think I'll have a lot of editing to do. School's in session. I don't got time for it anymore.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you guys both doing this. This has been really fun.
Yeah. Thanks for the
anytime,
invite.
man. Yeah.
do you guys both work tomorrow?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. We had off today.
Ooh, nice.
Tomorrow is a professional day, so no students, but I do have to go to sleep.
There you go.
Lots of meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, meetings all morning. Well, we'll have to do this again sometime. I'll think of a good reason to. I'll get on that.
Sounds good.
That's good to talk to you always, Robbie. And Paul, too, good to talk to you as well. So.
Yep. All right, gentlemen. Have a good night.
Yes,
talk to you
you as
later.
well.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Bye.